Good morning. Welcome to Inquisition Update. My name's Tom Fress, and I'll be your host for the next hour. You're listening to FirstAmendmentRadio.com. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to tell the world what this Vatican Jesuit-led New World Order is all about, how it got started. We're continuing to read and discuss the book Codeword Barbelon. 666, Danger in the Vatican, The Sons of Loyola and Their Plans for World Domination by P.D. Stuart. A most highly recommended book for those seeking to understand that which is described in the Bible. A time of great tribulation for God's people. A culmination of the age just prior to Christ's advent and his kingdom, and the great evil that has deceived the whole world. And the creation of a global, earthly, counterfeit kingdom of Christ. And we were discussing Friday in the book how the papacy is bringing all this about, and we were talking particularly about Professor Malachi Martin, a Jesuit priest of the Fourth Vow, a Vatican insider, a spy, and an advisor to several popes, including John Paul II. He spoke voluminously in his book, The Keys of This Blood, about this New World Order, and he described it as a race, an endgame race, a competition between three contenders who would be in control of this one world government. The proposal is made in the book that a one world government is already determined to come about. The only thing yet to be determined is who's going to be the head of it. There were three contenders: Soviet Russia, the industrialized West, and what Professor Martin uses to describe the Vatican, the Black International. Now, Professor Malachi Martin in this book leaves no room for doubt who the Vatican regarded at that time as the three competitors for world supremacy. Western capitalism led by the United States, communism under Gorbachev, and what Malachi Martin called the Black International. The term Black International is a pseudonym for the hierarchical forces of the traditional Roman Catholic Church. Now, I explained, and I'll reiterate, the traditional Roman Catholic Church is not that church that emerged from Vatican Council II. It is my belief that the Vatican is going to repudiate Vatican Council II as a heresy. And that during Vatican Council II, the Roman Catholic Church pretended to offer peace to Protestants, an ecumenical spirit, to put down their religious and doctrinal differences and to find unity through civil occupation. They literally threw us a bone of peace, and the ignorant Protestants, not understanding that it is the papacy and the Roman Catholic Church which is described in Revelation chapter 17. So they made a peace treaty with Satan himself with this ecumenical movement. They've made a peace treaty with this Black International that heads up the Vatican. And they've essentially repudiated Christ to make their bed with Antichrist, the whore of Revelation chapter 17. It's a horror of horrors. It's the death of the Protestant Reformation and the triumph, as Rome would call it, the triumph of the Virgin Mary. And the end game is a global government, a global religion, and a global economic system. Martin contends was up for grabs between communism, the industrialized West, and the Vatican itself. And the balance of power has shifted toward the Vatican. And he says, Martin then proceeds to tell us with reason and support which of these three geopolitical giants will emerge as the victor of what he calls a winner-take-all global competition, the end game. He says it'll be the Black International, a term that has long been used to refer to the hierarchy of the Roman Catholic Church. Now, this traditional Roman Catholicism that he's talking about is not that ecumenical Roman Catholic Church that emerged from Vatican Council II, but the traditional Roman Catholic Church, and that is Tridentine. In other words, the Roman Catholic Church as it established itself at the bloody Counter-Reformation Council of Trent, a militant church, a killing church, a church that condemned Protestantism and every Protestant tenet. And that was what led to the Inquisitions. And no one who has any knowledge of history can deny that when the Vatican becomes the world sovereign, the controlling power in this country, religious persecution will result. It's not speculation. It's not conjecture. It is consistent with 2,000 years of history. And that's why this program is called Inquisition Update, and my business is to sound the warning to God's people. Make your peace with Christ. Divorce yourself from Antichrist. Learn to be able to distinguish the difference between Christ's heavenly kingdom and the Pope's earthly counterfeit. This is about salvation. This isn't about waging war against the Jesuits or overthrowing the government or doing any such thing. Christ said, my kingdom is not of this world. If it were of this world, then would my people fight. Okay, so I'm not an advocate of taking up arms and ammunition and waging war against the government. I'm just all about arming myself with the Word of God and the facts of history and proclaiming the battle. It's a spiritual battle, and it can only be won by spiritual weapons, and that spiritual weapon is a singularity. It is called the Holy Word of God. The authorized King James Version of the Bible. It is the only spiritual weapon against which the spirit of Antichrist has no power. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, nothing added, nothing removed. It's our only hope. But first we need to know who our enemy is, and that's what this book is about. How does Satan manifest himself in the world? What is his counterfeit kingdom? How is it that he is destroying God's people by deception? What is the great deception? And we're going to talk in great detail about that deception Thursday when we have Bill Hughes back on the broadcast in our discussions about Bible prophecy, particularly Daniel chapter 9, and then how that lie has resulted in the futurist interpretation of Bible prophecy and what Rome has done to make that her rendition of Daniel chapter 9 come to pass in the world, and I think it's going to stun you. The information that we'll reveal in successive programs on successive Thursdays. Don't miss the broadcast Thursday, because we're going to get started on that, and it'll open your eyes if you'll just listen. If you'll have ears to hear and eyes to see, and are familiar with history, and are familiar with the true interpretation of Bible prophecy in Daniel chapter 9, and how Christ fulfilled the 70th week of Daniel, and how Rome foisted the counterfeit futurist 70th week of Daniel, and how they are manually fulfilling their lie in the world. It's going to be a revelation that I think you'll very much appreciate and learn from. Now, let's continue with the book. It is said that in order, or at least so the story goes, to bring an end to communism, and the United States conducted a joint intelligence operation with the Vatican for the purpose of overthrowing one of those three geopolitical players, Russia. So P.D. Stewart's telling us that in this three-way race, two of the contenders joined forces to destroy the third. And that was the United States, the industrialized West, represented by the United States, and the Vatican. And we know by Avril Manhattan's book, The Unholy Alliance, the Vatican-Moscow-Washington Alliance, that Ronald Reagan's United States unified with the Vatican to help destroy the Soviet Union. So now we're down to two contenders. The Vatican and the United States destroying the Soviet Union left only two contenders. And it said this operation was addressed at length by Carl Bernstein in Time magazine. But Malachi Martin tells us that the Vatican wants it all. For it is a winner-take-all game, he says. The two major contenders, the United States and America, in the Millennium Endgame will be eliminated. Did you hear what he said? Malachi Martin, the Jesuit priest, tells us it's a winner-take-all game, and the two major contenders, the Soviet Union and America, in the millennial endgame will be eliminated. One down, one to go, if you can do the math. Russia's already been defeated, Soviet Russia, communism, and America's next. And are we seeing the destruction of this country? Are we seeing what Malachi Martin said would happen? Are we seeing it come to pass? Are we being destroyed economically? Politically? Are we being destroyed spiritually? I'm going to talk about how we've been destroyed spiritually Thursday with Bill Hughes. Are we seeing all of the things that made our country great leave this country? Are we seeing an overwhelming degradation to the moral status of this country? Are we seeing an invasion taking place of this country? That's how you need to see the Roman Catholic Spanish Mexicans that are coming across the border. Rome's taken over. It's not fiction. It's fact. It's facts on the ground. Facts that you can witness for yourself. First it was the Soviet Union, and now it's the United States. We're seeing that take place every day in the news. And, of course, it's never couched in terms of religion. It's never couched in terms of the New World Order endgame, where the Black International wins supreme over communism and capitalism, but that's precisely what's taking place. As we saw the destruction of Soviet Russia, so we are now seeing the destruction of Protestant USA and the victory of the Virgin Mary. That's what we're seeing. Now, how will this happen? As everyone knows, on July 1st, 1992, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics had completely collapsed. The Communist Empire ended. That left just two players, the United States and the Vatican. And Malachi Martin tells us that the Vatican is not interested in a power-sharing partnership with the United States. Who will triumph? Who's going to triumph? Who will be the winner or cedes power to the other? Is that too preposterous a proposition? who is going to win of these two, or will one simply cede power to another? And I believe the United States has ceded power to the Black International, to the Vatican, through people like President Ronald Reagan and President George W. Bush and President George H.W. Bush and Bill Clinton and now Barack Obama and our Congress and our Supreme Court. They're literally handing this country to the papacy. They know about this New World Order endgame, and they're handing it over lock, stock, and barrel. Soviet Russia's been destroyed. The United States is going down without a fight. And as a matter of fact, the press won't even report on it. But I'm going to report on it. And I hope you have eyes to see and ears to hear. This is the only explanation that makes sense. The book continues, he says, for most people it's difficult to believe that somehow, someday, the Vatican could be in a superior power alliance with the United States of America. But perhaps we've proof of this possibility from the words of President Ronald Reagan, who in April of 1982 made this incredible statement to the National Catholic Education Association in Chicago, Illinois. Listen to what Ronald Reagan said. Think of these comments in terms of this Vatican American endgame and the ceding of power of this country to the Vatican. Listen to what he says. He says, thank you, Bishop Cummings, Madam Mayor, and distinguished guests. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to be among leaders and educators in the Catholic community. I'm grateful for your help in shaping American policy to reflect God's will. And I will forward, he says, I look forward to further guidance from His Holiness the Pope, John Paul II, during an audience I'll have with him in June. Reader, it's not clear to you that the Pope is the head of this grand design or the big idea? Why else would Ronald Reagan need to wait further assistance on the Pope? So the evidence is clear. Ronald Reagan, in these clearly expressed terms, before the National Catholic Education Association, Chicago, Illinois, in 1982, that he was simply waiting further instruction from the Pope. Now, you've got to ask yourself, where's the separation of church and state in that? Where's the Second Amendment in that? Where's the First Amendment? Separation clause of the Constitution of the United States. Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion or interfering with the free exercise thereof. But we've got a president of the United States making deals under the covers with the whore of Rome. And it was public information, and nobody raised hell about it. This is it. This is it. He says, I'm grateful for your help in shaping American policy to reflect God's will. Ronald Reagan thought it was God's will that the Pope should rule the world. Ronald Reagan thought that the Pope was the vicar or the replacement of the Son of God on earth, and it was the Pope who decided he was going to rule the world. And he's been telling us in his own bulls and encyclicals for nigh on to 2,000 years that he is the replacement of the Son of God on earth, and Ronald Reagan believed it. And just simply gave him the authority to take over this country, that he ceded this country to the Black International, to the Vatican. And he told him, he said, I'm just simply looking forward to further guidance from His Holiness the Pope, John Paul II, during an audience that I'll have with him in June. He said, P.D. Stuart says, reader, is it not clear to you that the Pope is the head of this grand design, of the big idea? You know, here's the tough part, you know. President George H.W. Bush, that stood at the head of a joint session of Congress and talked about this New World Order. But there are people in this country that have heard the term New World Order and don't have a clue what it's about. How is it that they have decided to allow the Vatican to rule the world and they haven't told us? They haven't told us what they've mentioned it, the New World Order, over and over and over again. They just about wore out the term. But nobody ever told us what it is. And they've left it to people like me and Greg Szymanski and Eric John Phelps and John Daniel and so many other researchers into these subjects to tell you what the New World Order is. And we're seen as people who are just conspiracy theorist wackos and Roman Catholic anti-Roman Catholic bigots. But if people the likes of George H.W. Bush would be honest with the American people, they would tell us. We've handed the country over to the Vatican. If Ronald Reagan would have been complete in his language, he would have told us. We've made a deal with the papacy. We've ceded the country. We're going to allow the Vicar of Christ to rule the world. And if you think of that in light of Revelation chapter 13, doesn't it all make sense? Prophecy fulfilled? The second beast has created an image of the first beast, Rome. The United States has literally resurrected the papacy to full power in the world. I mean, it's like the Middle Ages on steroids. Yeah, Ronald Reagan was just waiting for further guidance from his little god in Rome, the Pope. It says, Peregrine Worsthorne, editor of the London Sunday Telegraph, in his article, quote, now a holy European empire, unquote. A holy European empire, which means a holy Roman empire, astutely summarized the title of his article in the Sunday Telegraph was now a holy European empire, and he astutely summarized developments as things stood in 1991. Quote, it is in the movements toward federalism of the common market that the Pope may see the greatest possibility of an increase in Catholic political power since the fall of Napoleon, or since the Counter-Reformation. The common market itself started under the influence of Catholic politicians. You're listening to Inquisition Update on FirstAmendmentRadio.com. We'll be right back.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on satellite, internet, or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the Internet. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the Scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a reestablished Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
Okay, welcome back to Inquisition Update on First Amendment Radio. Now, picking up where we left off just before the break, it says Peregrine Worsthorne, editor of the London Sunday Telegraph, in his article, Now a Holy European Empire, astutely summarized developments as things stood in 1991. Quote, "It is in the movements toward federalism of the common market, in other words, the unification of the European nations under one federal government, that the Pope may see the greatest possibility for an increase in Catholic political power since the fall of Napoleon, or since the Counter-Reformation." Interesting that he would include the Counter-Reformation. It should have been a startling warning to Protestants all over the world. He continues with the quote. He said, "The common market itself started under the influence of Catholic politicians." That should have been a screaming warning to Protestants all across the world. Catholic politicians brought the common market about, that raises the papacy to a position of political and religious power in the world since the fall of Napoleon and the Counter-Reformation. Catholic politicians do this. And it says, if European federalism triumphs, the European common market will indeed be an empire. It will lack an emperor, but it will have the Pope, unquote. Does anybody still think that this New World Order is just a conspiracy theory? And that I'm just a Roman Catholic, an anti-Roman Catholic bigot? This appeared in an article of the London Sunday Telegraph. Was he an anti-Catholic bigot? I mean, the best way to improve my credibility is just simply read history. And that's history, a published article. And it says the following year, the Singapore Straits Times, January 6, 1992, ran an article extracted from the London Financial Times entitled, quote, Pope hopes to capitalize on the fall of communism, unquote. It reported, quote, by the millennial standards of the Holy See, in other words, she's been looking forward 1,000 years. This is in her 1,000-year strategic plan. Pope John Paul II is in a hurry to stamp the imprint of the Roman Catholic Church on the fast-changing events in Europe, unquote. These two short newspaper clippings reveal, even so subtly, the mastermind behind the fall of communism and also behind the New World Order and the various agents of globalism. They also cast a well-defined shadow of what is to come. It's also significant to note that in the best-selling book, The Keys of This Blood, by Jesuit priest Malachi Martin, he says the Vatican, that is the Pope, initiated the millennial endgame. Why did the Pope initiate such a game? More importantly, what is the millennium endgame? And how did the Pope initiate or start this game? The millennium endgame, Martin says, is the destruction of both communism and capitalism, followed by a world government that will have control over each of us individually and over all of us together as a community, unquote. That's a quote directly from Malachi Martin, a Jesuit priest, a high Roman Catholic insider. Get the book, The Keys of This Blood, and read it. So why are we still in a quandary? Why is America still in the quandary of whether or not a New World Order really exists? And on top of that, who's the head of it? The information's available. And just because you're not getting this news on Fox News doesn't mean it's not news. It just means Rome controls the press. You have to get this information from published books. And Americans just don't like to read books. They want to sit in front of the television with a beer or a cup of coffee and be spoon-fed by beautiful blonde-headed Fox News foxes. I mean, they're so distracted by the women they can't even concentrate on the mind control that's coming from the cyclops on the wall. We've got to obtain a new love for reading. Look, there's only one way to know the God of glory, and that's to read his book. Remember the Protestant Reformation? Remember the printing press when it was created? The Gutenberg press? And they started translating the Bible into the common language and started printing mass print publications of the Bible. And all of a sudden people said, that's the Word of God? I need to learn to read. And they did. They learned to read so they could read God's book. They realized that the Pope and his priests had a monopoly on the Scriptures. Nobody else could read the Bible. Or at least nobody else could translate it or teach it, they had control of God's book. And God simply let it out of prison, put it in the hands of plowboys all over Europe who dropped their plow, went to school, learned how to read so they could read God's book. They knew that the only way to know God was to read His book. They knew it was the recipe for life and salvation. And they couldn't wait to learn to read. But we don't read anymore in this enlightened generation. No, we don't read. We hate to read. So how are we going to read God's book? We don't. And even those of us who can read simply check our brain and our Bibles at the door. We go into the churches and we listen to what the preachers say, and they're controlled by the same priests and prelates that tried to destroy the Protestant Reformation. They tell us Jesuit lies. How many preachers are standing publicly on the public square and in their own churches saying the Pope is the biblical Antichrist? Where can one hear the Protestant message in the world today? We've got through what we've just read in this book, we've got full reason to believe that the Pope's going to rule the world, and there's no protest. There's no protest anymore. The Protestant Reformation is dead. Rigor mortis is set in. Call the morgue. What hope do we have? They've dumbed us down. They've gotten us so busy with other endeavors of interest that we don't even know our own spiritual and Reformation history. God said, Christ the Lord said, see that no man deceive you, and we are completely deceived. The Pope initiated this millennial endgame, and he's going to finish it too. I wonder how long his victory will last, though, because Christ is coming to reestablish His kingdom. As we learned from the book of Daniel, that stone that was cut out of the mountain without hands is going to strike that image in its feet, grind it to powder, blow it away in the wind, and then that stone will become a great mountain that'll never end. Let God's people no longer be undecided about what this New World Order is. It is that which was prophesied in the Scriptures. There's a horror coming upon the world that cannot even be expressed in human terms. Only the blood of the saints will express the horror that is about to come to this entire world. And it's going to start right here in Protestant America. Ecumenical, evangeli-belly America. And you know what's going to be the excuse? Well, it just wouldn't be politically correct to tell the truth, now would it? I mean, we wouldn't want to be called anti-Catholic bigots. A year after Malachi Martin's book was published, David Funderburk, former U.S. ambassador to Romania, said, quote, George Bush has been surrounding himself with people who believe in one world government. They believe that the Soviet system and the American system are converging, unquote. The same year, Brent Scowcroft wrote in the Washington Post, quote, we believe we're creating the beginning of a new world order coming out of the collapse of the U.S.-Soviet antagonisms, unquote. And A.M. Rosenthal of the New York Times observed, quote, but it became clear as time went on that in Mr. Bush's mind, the New World Order was founded on a convergence of goals and interests between the United States and the Soviet Union, so strong and permanent that they would work as a team through the UN Security Council, unquote. How could the United States have worked with the Soviet Union and at the same time collude with the Vatican to bring down communism? What is important about this U.S.-Soviet quote-unquote convergence and collaboration is that they effectively neutralized each other while the Vatican under Pope John Paul II got stronger and gained greater influence. The Soviet Union was the first to fall. What is most interesting, telling even, is that one of President Gorbachev's very first acts after dismantling the mighty Soviet Union was to travel to Rome and kiss the Pope's ring. We must not miss the significance of this powerful message from the President of the former Soviet Union. For when Pope John Paul II was first installed in Rome as the so-called vicarious filii Dei, the replacement of the Son of God on earth in autumn of 1978, he refused to let his aging mentor, Cardinal Wyszynski, kiss his ring. But Gorbachev not only kissed the Pope's ring, he called him the highest moral authority on the earth. That extraordinary statement by Mikhail Gorbachev was made on December 1st, 1989, when the Soviet president visited Pope John Paul II in the Vatican. Taking his wife Raisa by the hand, Gorbachev introduced her to John Paul II. Quote, "Raisa Maximovna, I have the honor to introduce the highest moral authority on earth." Unquote. Having surrendered his country to the forces that Pope John Paul II set in motion, Gorbachev was now acknowledging the supremacy and the moral authority of the papacy. Reader, communism was created under the auspices of the Vatican. Now, I won't reiterate the story, but the Jesuits created the form of government known as communism in the Paraguayan reductions in the 17th century and transplanted it in Russia. Now, it continues. It says, for as the Jesuit order as the Jesuit scholar Oswald von Nell-Brenning told his fellow Jesuits, quote, "We are all standing on the shoulders of Karl Marx, but some of us are simply not aware of it," unquote. And John Paul II let it slip again when he said, quote, "The Soviet president was an obvious instrument of divine providence and a specific sign of the times," unquote. The phrase divine providence was used in reference to a new world order by an earlier pope, John the 23rd. In his address at the opening of Vatican Council II, he said, quote, "Divine providence is leading us to a new order of things," unquote. In the triumph of Catholicism over communism, we saw the first phase of the Vatican's New World Order Millennium Endgame as initiated by Pope John Paul II. America is next. And America's going down right before our very eyes. On July 20th, 1992, Time magazine published an essay entitled "The Birth of the Global Nation" by Strobe Talbot, a Rhodes Scholar. Talbot was the roommate of President Bill Clinton while at Oxford University and later held a directorship of the Council on Foreign Relations. He wrote, quote, "Nationhood as we know it will be obsolete. All states will recognize a single global authority. Citizen of the world will have assumed real meaning," unquote. Chilling words. Who will control this single global authority? Sadly, however, there are still those who will not believe that the world government is upon us. Decent folk find it difficult to believe, incomprehensible even, that there are individuals and organizations so sinister as to actually try to take over the world for their own agenda. There's a striking allegory of this condition in Fenimore Cooper's book, The Headsman, which is the story of an executioner, Balhaza, who travels incognito among the people. His success in evading recognition and capture lies in the fact that the people of that city are convinced that he is in full hiding from authorities. The executioner, therefore, openly mingles amongst the people because he believes no one will recognize him without his hood. Some people seem to recognize something familiar in him, and a few even suspect that the character, Count So-and-so, who gets onto a boat with his daughter, is the executioner, but they're dissuaded from this thought by the conduct of the executioner. His behavior is so sweet and gentle that he simply cannot be who they think he is. That's like the Pope. Everybody thinks he's the great moral standard of the world. Nobody would ever suspect the Pope, the man of peace, the great man of peace, the moral leader of the world. Nobody would ever suspect him, would they? And if you do, and you say so publicly, you're just an anti-Roman Catholic bigot. Everybody dismisses you as some kind of a conspiracy wacko. In the same way, the evidences tend to show a global conspiracy are often dismissed on the grounds that no one group or conspiracy could possibly control everything. But the conspiracy is not just one organization, but shared between Jesuits and their Masonic agencies. Phi Beta Kappa, Skull and Bones, the Bilderberg, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Round Table, Palladian Freemasonry, De Molay. De Molay was described by Dr. Billy Graham, the Protestant Pope, Billy Graham, as, quote, the premier youth organization of the world, unquote. De Molay, the front portico of entry into Illuminized Freemasonry. Billy Graham, what happened to you? And he mentions two other Jesuit secret societies, Opus Dei and the Deadly Knights of Columbus. You know, people keep telling me, Tom, you're talking about a conspiracy that is so vast as to be impossible. I explain it this way. Our inability to comprehend a conspiracy so vast is only possible because of a complete ignorance about who the grand conspirator is. He's Satan himself, and he's a spiritual influence on people who keep not God's commandments. He's a spiritual influence on those who know not Christ. And that's an overwhelming majority of the human family. And whether they realize they're influenced by him or not, he is theirs. And they are his. And he can influence them at his will. And each one of them is a member of an army, each playing his individual and maybe insignificant role, but in total, it's a conspiracy so vast that cannot be comprehended in human terms. It has to be understood in spiritual terms. You have to understand, Satan doesn't need these organizations to directly conspire with one another. He leads them all. To a final goal of deceiving the whole world and setting up his kingdom on this earth in commensurate with his false prophecy in Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12 through 14. He said that he would exalt his throne above the stars of God, that he would sit upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north, that he would ascend above the heights of the clouds, that he would be like the Most High. He's a false prophet. But he's fulfilling his prophet right before our very eyes. And it's a global spiritual conspiracy between him and his servants. No matter how big it is, no matter how many different organizations he uses to accomplish his global aim, it is easily explained when one understands the spiritual component behind it. And the top of this New World Order is the papacy of the Roman Catholic Church. He's Satan's man. He's the end game in this millennial confrontation. In the same way, the evidence tending to show a global conspiracy are often dismissed on the grounds that no one group or conspiracy could possibly control everything. No, they couldn't unless they had Satan's help. But the conspiracy is not just one organization, but shared between Jesuits and their Masonic agencies. And he goes on to list them, and I'll list them for you tomorrow, and the succeeding chapter in this book will talk about them specifically in terms that you can understand, and I'm anxious to get to it. Don't miss tomorrow's broadcast. You've been listening to Inquisition Update on LibertyRadioLive.com. Tom Fresh, your host. I'll join you tomorrow. Be here at 10 a.m. Central, 11 Eastern, and we'll continue the reading of the book Codeword Barbelon by P.D. Stuart. Get it at Lux Verbi Books. Stay tuned for Nicholas Arthur's Cross the Border and Sound Biblical Teaching. I'll see you tomorrow.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on satellite, internet, or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn. The Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the Scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, C-R-O-S-S, crosstheborder.org to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.